Hello, welcome back to Classroom Observations for Increased Interactions. This is a 4-module series on classroom observations. It's mainly for administrators who do observations or anyone else who actually may be involved in the observation process. And it is also quite beneficial for teachers so that teachers know what to expect in what could be considered good classroom observation techniques. Strategies, that sort of thing. Again, if you have not watched the first video is for Module 1, Exploring Effective Classroom Observation Techniques. If you have not already watched that video or done that part of the course, I highly recommend that you stop now and go down to the description and click on the video for the first module. Again, that's Module 1, Exploring Effective Classroom Observation Techniques. This is Module 2, Effective Preparation for Classroom Observations. Okay, so first we learned about effective classroom observation techniques. Now in this module, we will learn how to prepare. In the third module, which is obviously after this one, is Mastering Classroom Observation Techniques. And then the fourth module is on Analyzing and Providing Constructive Feedback on Classroom Observations. So let's get right into Module 2. The objectives for this module are to establish clear observation goals and criteria, to discuss collaboration between administrators and teachers in planning observations, to explore pre-observation conferences and goal-setting discussions, and to identify relevant data and resources for observations. So let's start with establishing clear observation goals and criteria. To begin with, we should talk about the key points to consider. Because like with anything else, there are some key elements, some key points that we need to take into consideration as we proceed. So first of all, we need to talk about focused observations. When we establish clear observation goals and criteria, we need to make sure that the observations themselves are focused. So observations, of course, as I said, should be frequent and focused on specific areas of teaching and learning. Clear goals for observation should be established, and the observation process should be aligned with the school or district's instructional goals. Now, I mentioned that in the first module, and of course I'm going to, keep hitting on the same points because they're important. That's why it's called a key point to consider. And also, focused observations help ensure that the observation process is purposeful and meaningful, which is exactly what they need to be. Next key point to consider is structured observation tools. Remember that if you watched the first module, we need to have structured observation tools because they provide a framework for conducting observations and ensure that all relevant areas are assessed. Observation tools should be aligned with the school or district's instructional goals and standards, of course, and then structured observation tools help ensure that the observation process is focused and evidence-based, which is what we're trying to get at. The third key point to consider is that we need to have actionable feedback, not just feedback that criticizes the teacher, but actionable feedback. How can we make improvements? So these observations should be followed by brief, actionable, and targeted feedback, which we will talk about later in this module. Feedback should be based on evidence collected during the observation and should be aligned with the established observation goals and criteria that you have already gone over with the teachers. The actionable feedback also helps ensure that the observation process is purposeful and contributes to continuous professional development. Remember, as teachers and even as administrators, in this career that we have chosen, that we have embraced with our whole heart, we are lifelong learners. That means that we have to be involved in continuous professional development. So by setting these clear observation goals and criteria, observers can ensure that the observation process is focused, purposeful, and aligned with the school or district's instructional goals. This helps ensure that the observation process is meaningful and contributes to continuous professional development, which is why we do what we do, right? Okay, let's talk about the importance just for a second. Ask yourself, is it important to establish clear observation goals and criteria? Hopefully, your answer to this question is yes. And why? Well, let's go through the module, and if you don't already know why it is important, I'm pretty sure that you'll figure it out as we go along. And then when we summarize, we'll hit on this point again. So the answer, of course, to this question is yes, but why? Well, let's take a deeper look. So in order to get to that point, we have to consider some examples of observation goals themselves. The first goal that we might want to consider is evaluating student engagement. So when we have observations in mind, whether they be formal observations, informal observations, or even when you're doing a self-evaluation with the video-based observations, that's the one where we can do self-reflection and self-evaluation, self-improvement, and then also with peer observations. All of these things, all four of these, we can have a goal with each of them to evaluate student engagement. Are the students engaged? Why or why not? So when we observe the level of student engagement during a specific instructional activity or lesson, we are trying to evaluate how well received the lesson is to the students, and are they participating? A lot of times we like to just grade our students on their participation, but the reality is if we are not providing them with a lesson or lesson content that engages them, how is it fair to grade their participation if they're bored? If they're bored with whatever we're doing with them, then of course they're not going to participate, and it's absolutely unfair for us to give them bad grade in participation when we are the ones who are boring them. Okay, so no matter what the style of the observation is, we have to consider evaluating student engagement. So on the formal observation, that will probably be one part of the overall observation rubric. But on the informal, it may be just that one thing that we're going in to look at in the lessons, and then giving back to the teachers that same day. And then if it's, if you're looking at it for your video-based observation, of course, that's up to you to look at and see if, your students are being engaged by what you're teaching them. Hopefully, when you're doing the video-based observations, you're not just putting the camera on you, you're putting the camera on as much of the classroom as possible so you can see their reactions to what you're doing. And then with the peer observations, if you're doing one particular activity that the students really enjoy and it's something positive that your colleague can get out of that and incorporate in their lessons in some way, then of course that's bonus. That's a good thing. So that is one. That's one example of observation goals. Another observation goal could be assessing instructional strategies. So how are you teaching things? Are you differentiating? Because you have different levels of capabilities within your class, which of course is really important. It's not that difficult to do. We have another workshop on differentiation of lessons that you can check out. But again, in any of the different observation methods, you can look at assessing instructional strategies. And of course, in the formal, this is one of the areas that is looked at normally. Another observation goal could be observing classroom management techniques. Do you have certain processes and procedures that are in place? Again, in the formal observations, that is only one part. In the informal walkthroughs, that could be the part that is being looked at. And then in the other observation methods, it could be something that is looked at as a goal as well. And then the last thing last example that we have today is analyzing assessment practices. So normally what this comes to is if it's a formal assessment, like a summative assessment. And again, if you're interested in the assessments, check out our training, our workshops on assessments, formative rubrics, and summative assessment. Those are available. Again, for analyzing the assessment practices, for the formal, how are our protocols handled? What do we do in certain situations for formal or summative assessments? Like, how is the seating arranged, and do we allow pencils? Where's the placement of all the stuff that students bring to school? How much time do we allow? That kind of thing can be used for the formal assessments. For the formative assessments, which are not as formal, those formative assessments are the things that we do in the class. Remember, it's how we ask questions. One of the questions, of course, that I hit on a few times throughout my classroom management workshops is, asking certain types of questions in order to formatively assess our students. These comprehension check questions, question for understanding. Don't just ask yes or no questions, because that really doesn't tell us much. So it's how you ask questions, how you assess your students throughout the actual lessons. So that sort of thing can be one of the goals that we have for any of the observation methods. Okay, so now let's talk about collaboration between administrators and teachers in planning the actual observations. No matter what type of observation they are, they should be planned out, because remember that planning leads to success. First, let's address the importance of collaborating. First of all, we have improved instructional practices that come out as a result. Remember, the collaboration allows administrators and teachers to work together to develop observation criteria and tools that align with the school's instructional goals and standards. Remember also that by collaborating, administrators and teachers can ensure that the observation process focuses on specific areas of teaching and learning that are important for student success. Having that focus is extremely important. And then, of course, through collaboration, administrators and teachers can share their expertise and insights before the actual observation itself, which leads to identifying effective instructional practices and strategies to look out for during the observations. Next is enhanced professional growth. With enhanced professional growth, collaborative planning of classroom observations provides opportunities for teachers to receive feedback and support, which is extremely important. Without that support, professional growth a lot of times becomes stagnant. So we have to be, on the lookout for supporting our teachers. Teachers always need to feel like they can go to administrators at any time and get help. One of the things that we need to do as administrators is get into this mindset of serving those who we lead. In order to make sure that our teachers are doing the best possible job that they can, we have to support them to make sure that they have all of the tools and expertise in order to do the things that we expect. That's a no-brainer, really. Never, as an administrator, think that you are above your colleagues. Yeah, maybe you get paid more. Hopefully you get paid more because you're in a different level of responsibility. But the reality is that you're there to serve them, to make sure that all of their needs are taken care of so they can do their job effectively, so that the students can get the greatest benefit possible out of the lessons that they're taking with your teachers. And then also remember that collaboration allows for meaningful discussions and reflection on teaching practices, which ultimately leads to targeted professional growth opportunities. Give them, through the support that you give them the opportunities that they need. So by observing and by seeing how they perform and what they need in their classrooms, you can tailor the professional development opportunities that you offer, or I hope that you offer, so that they can become the best possible versions of themselves that they can be. Okay, and then another important thing to look at is increased trust and buy-in. When administrators involve teachers in the planning process itself, that fosters a sense of ownership and shared responsibility, which we absolutely need. If teachers don't buy in to what administrators are essentially demanding, then it's really difficult to lead. Teachers and administrators, you need to have the same goals, the same mission, the same vision. And of course, that starts with the school. The school has to have a good mission and vision. And then the administrators follow that, and then it goes on to the teachers. And this shared trust and buy-in is how an organization succeeds. Without this, you're doomed to have a culture of negativity and doomed to failure, pretty much. You will see that the quality of education goes down, the quality of your students, decreases. And when I say quality of your students, I don't mean personality-wise. I mean their test scores and their ability to learn and to take schooling seriously, multiple factors. So be on the same page. That's very important. I can't stress that enough. And also collaboration that builds trust and mutual respect between administrators and teachers helps to create a very positive and supportive school culture, learning culture. Also, keep in mind as an administrator that teachers are more likely to embrace and actively participate in the observation process itself when they feel valued and included in the decision-making process. So don't neglect to include them. Include them. You like I said, you want to be on the same page so that you can all succeed together. Okay, their success is your success. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we don't neglect the importance of alignment with school goals. Remember how I said that a school has to have a good mission and a good vision? Well, hopefully it does. If it doesn't, maybe you need to take a look at that. And making a good mission and vision first, and then going on and making sure your school has goals. A lot of times we use state exams or other types of data, grading data in order to set goals, and we do that because states and agencies expect that from us. That's what they look at in order to put us into different tiers and, in order to let us qualify for certain funding, and that sort of thing. So don't neglect to do that if you have to. But you can also have different goals of, the number of students that you want to be able to go on to different types of schools. And don't neglect to have a certain goal for students going on to vocational schools. Not everybody has to go to university, but every student should be progressing from high school to something, whether it be a trade or some kind of service or whatever they want to do. So have certain goals. Don't forget to align your whole process with your school goals. And these school goals should actually come from the team, not just you. Don't be the only one who's coming up with the goals for the school. Have a committee come up with goals and go from there. And make sure that you collaborate, because remember that collaboration allows for the identification of specific areas of focus that are relevant to the school's unique context and needs. Be specific, and make sure that everything is aligned. Everything will run much smoother for you if you do. Okay, so now let's talk about the benefits of collaborative planning. With collaborative planning, you can establish clear goals. Collaborative planning allows administrators and teachers to work together to establish clear observation goals that align with the school's instructional objectives. Okay, having the school's goals in mind. And then also clear goals help ensure that the observation process is focused and meaningful, which is absolutely essential. And then collaborative planning allows for the identification of specific areas of focus that are relevant to the school's unique context and needs, and helps you grow as a community. One of the best ways to succeed as a community is to first establish those clear goals and then reaching those goals together. Okay, another benefit is that collaboration helps in development of observation criteria. Collaborative planning allows administrators and teachers to develop specific and measurable observation criteria that align with the established goals. Observation criteria also helps ensure that the observation process is objective and evidence-based, trying to keep as much subjectivity out as possible. Remember that as learning institutions, we rely on facts more than on opinions. And then collaborative planning also allows for the identification of effective instructional practices and strategies that support student learning and growth. Highly important and very beneficial, and a very beneficial part of collaboration. Another benefit of collaborating is that it provides for supportive feedback. Remember that collaborative planning allows administrators and teachers to work together to develop a supportive and growth-oriented observation process. The observation process should be followed by brief, actionable, and targeted feedback that is aligned with the established goals and criteria. This obviously, or should be obvious, helps everyone succeed, helps everyone stay focused and stay on the same page. And also collaborative planning allows for the identification of specific areas for improvement and development of targeted professional growth opportunities. Again, so, remember that a lot of what we're doing, yes, we're doing professional development right now through this particular course, but this leads to other professional growth opportunities. Remember what I said earlier, we are lifelong learners. Everything that we're doing is a learning process. It's a continual thing. We'll never stop. As long as we're in this career, we don't stop. But, it's really like anything else. Even, plumbers, electricians, computer programmers, etc., they can't stop learning, because once they do, they become stagnant and other people pass them in the career. So don't be passed. Don't fail. Keep going. Keep learning. Okay. So another benefit of collaborative planning is that it enhances professional growth. Collaborative planning provides vast opportunities for teachers to receive feedback and support from administrators, if done correctly, of course. And, by working together, administrators and teachers can establish a culture of continuous improvement and professional development. And I can't hammer on that enough. I can't say it too many times. Observations, why do we do them? Obviously one of the biggest reasons why we have observations is for identifying areas where we can have more professional development, so that we can keep getting better. Nobody's perfect, but we can certainly strive to be the best versions of ourselves that we can possibly be, right? Let's talk a minute about the strategies for effective collaboration. I only have 5 things in mind now. Of these 5 things, the first is scheduling regular planning meetings. In order to have effective collaboration, we need to get together and have meetings. Without having regular meetings, things start to slip. We start to lose focus. If you have nothing else to talk about during a meeting other than just following up on, previous things, still get together and meet. I hear a lot of times where, someone will say, well, couldn't you just send an email? Unfortunately, that's not always the case. Yes, emails are an important part of communication in our careers, but having those face-to-face meetings at least once a month is very important. You need to see each other and listen actively to what someone is saying. Written word, when we type emails or, send WhatsApp or WeChat or whatever type of communication app we have, it's not the same as getting together and seeing somebody eye to eye and having a conversation with them. So even though we may not like having meetings, we need to have at least scheduled regular planning meetings. Okay, and we need to definitely have regular meetings when we're talking about observations. Okay, so make sure that, if you're an administrator, not only have regular professional development meetings, but Absolutely have observation meetings. Tell teachers, next week, expect me in your classes, especially if you're targeting, in a good way targeting, specific grades or specific subjects for different types of evaluations that you're doing. Okay? So have those regular meetings. The next thing is to share expectations and goals. Never think that teachers or anyone else knows what you're expecting of them or all the goals. Maybe you'll tell them, or maybe it's in the student handbook or employee handbook, but very seldom do people actually read all of that content. So during those meetings that you have, make sure that you're sharing all of your expectations and goals, even if they're monthly goals that you might have, or monthly expectations, or maybe it's expectations in conduct, anything. So make sure that you're sharing all of your expectations and goals. Next, strategy would be involving teachers in the decision-making process. As I said earlier, making sure that they, all the teachers buy into the decisions that are being made will go a long way in reaching success, reaching all the goals that you have set. Make sure that you involve them. You don't have to take everything that they say, obviously, and in fact, there's this quadrant style decision-making process where one quadrant actually, depending on importance and urgency of it, there's no input from teachers whatsoever. But the other three quadrants involve getting some level of teacher involvement. Another strategy is to develop a sense of community. Don't just, everything isn't all about work. You can have different support sessions with teachers, even if it's just taking them out for a meal once in a while, or having coffee with the principal once in a while, having pancake breakfast once in a while, or something. Build a sense of community. Invite teachers to do things other than just coming to work and teaching their lessons and going home. Try to develop a sense of community. Another strategy is to establish group norms. When it comes to establishing group norms, this a lot of times is like considered the hierarchy. You have both the official and unofficial hierarchies. Having an understanding of what those are really help in having a culture of collaboration. My only thing would be to be careful on the establishment of group norms. Make sure that what isn't really acceptable does not become normal. Remember that you're in a place of professionalism, a learning community. You can also establish these learning communities for professional development on different groups where you have different teams that are responsible for different things, different teams who are learning about different things, and then coming back and sharing those, whatever they learn, with everybody else. There's a lot of different things that you can do for group norms. I would like to suggest that you Google an establishment of group norms in a school, and you'll come up with, lots of great ideas. Okay, now let's talk about pre-observation conferences and goal-setting discussions themselves. This is really important in setting the goals, and like I said, doing it together, having a collaborative session, expectations and goals themselves. It's okay to have your evaluation forms, to establish your evaluation forms. I have done this. I have written a few different teacher observation forms, for the things that I'm going to look at and how the scale that we're going to use, a different kind of rubric. And this has changed over the years, depending on where I have worked. But the thing to do is, once you have your observation rubric, I'm talking about mostly for your formal observations now. Once you have this, share it with your teachers and ask for feedback before you actually start scheduling observations. Get the feedback. What do they expect? Do they have any questions on your expectations? Do they have any questions on the goals that you have tentatively prepared? Perhaps they have other goals in mind. So getting their feedback, again, getting their buy-in, making them part of the decision-making process is extremely important. And whatever you started out with may transform into something else, hopefully better. It should be better at the end. What is the significance? The significance in having these pre-observation conferences and goal-setting discussions is that they help to establish the clear expectations. Remember, these pre-observation conferences provide an opportunity for the observer and the teacher to establish clear expectations for the observation process. The conference itself allows both parties to discuss the observation goals, criteria, and feedback opportunities. These clear expectations help ensure that the observation process is focused, meaningful, and aligned with the school's instructional objectives, as I have said multiple times. It's very significant. Another significance of having pre-observation conferences and goal-setting discussions is that they build trust and rapport. By inviting the teachers into sessions with you where you can actually talk about things that are going to happen before they happen, it helps them to build trust in you. They trust you. Or they should anyways. If they don't, then maybe there's some personality conflict that needs to be addressed separately. But on a professional level, by doing something like this, it's very significant in that they start to put trust in you. And they feel like they can talk with you. You invite them to talk with you, then they should feel like they can talk to you. Another significance is that it helps to establish a focus. By having these pre-observation and goal-setting discussions, you can establish a clear focus for what's happening. Remember, the pre-observation conferences help establish focus for the observation process itself. The conference also allows the observer and the teacher to identify specific areas of focus that are relevant to the teacher's unique context and needs. Remember that a math teacher, for example, will probably be doing things differently than an English or social studies teacher. Science teacher for sure will be doing things differently, especially if they have project-based learning in their classroom. Make sure that you're talking with the teachers before so that you can establish a focus for the observations that are coming up. And then finally, it helps to provide meaningful feedback. By having these pre-observation conferences and goal-setting discussions, you can prepare for the feedback that will come at the end. You can say during the feedback, remember when we talked about this before the observation and then we conducted the observation? Well, here are the results of what we talked about and what was observed. Now let's talk for a couple of minutes about some strategies for conducting effective pre-observation conferences. One of the strategies that should be used is active listening. Remember that active listening includes paying attention, taking notes, and asking clarifying questions. Remember, when you're having these pre-observation conferences and goal-setting discussions, allowing the other person to talk is essential to getting buy-in from them. Okay, so listen to what they have to say. Don't just hear it, and be focusing on what you're going to say next, but listen to what they are saying so that you can respond to what they are saying. One of the greatest failures of communication these days is that people don't listen. So please, as an administrator or as someone who is going to be doing observations, make sure that you're listening during these pre-observation conferences. And then also we have open-ended questioning. Make sure that you ask questions other than yes or no, because this helps to establish understanding during your communication process. Okay, if you're just asking yes or no questions, this is kind of like being a dictator. You just want a yes person, or or you're listening for the no to fight against it. Don't be one of those people. Be the person who is asking clarifying questions. Be the person who is asking comprehension check questions. Be the person who is asking questions that leads to further discussion or the completion of the discussion in a positive way so that you're on the same page when you leave that discussion. Okay. Also, you're going to want to provide opportunities for the teachers to share their insights and concerns. Again, don't be one of those people who dismisses concerns. Anytime a teacher or even a student brings a concern to you, listen actively to what they have to say and try to find a solution to their concern, if that's why they are there voicing their concern. You might want to make sure that they're coming to you with a concern because they want you to help find a solution, or if they just want to, say something. Because sometimes people just need to get something off their chest, get something off their mind. They need somebody to talk to. They're not always looking for solutions. So make sure that they're not looking for solutions, because it might not end up the way that you want it to end up. Listen to the concern, but make sure, are they looking for a solution, or are they looking for just an ear? Finally, another strategy is establishing clear goals and criteria. Remember that our pre-observation conferences should establish clear observation goals and criteria that align with the school's goals, with your goals. The observer and the teacher should work together to identify these areas of focus for reaching these goals. Establishing clear goals and criteria helps to ensure that everything remains focused and meaningful. All of these strategies together help you to conduct effective pre-observation conferences that really establish a mutual understanding between the observer and the teacher, or the observer and the observed. And of course, that then leads to a more effective and meaningful process. Use these strategies, and together you will reach new heights of success. Okay? Now let's talk about collecting relevant data and resources for observations. There is a certain level of importance, as with everything that we're talking about. The first important thing that we need to consider is objective and reliable measures. When it comes to collecting data, it needs to be objective and reliable. If it's neither of these two things, the data really isn't useful. So it's important to make sure that it's objective and reliable. Observation data can be used to identify effective instructional practices and strategies that help with student learning and growth if it is objective and reliable. Objective and reliable measures help us ensure that observation processes are evidence-based and focused on specific areas. Again, make sure that any data that you collect is objective and reliable. That's one of the important reasons of having an established observation rubric. That itself is the data, okay? Because you have certain standards of excellence that you're expecting. You've gone over all of this stuff before with teachers, and that becomes part of the data set. And it is objective and reliable. Don't neglect a good observation rubric. Next important thing to keep in mind is improved understanding. Now, what is meant by improved understanding is that observation data can lead to improved understanding and better models for teaching practices. By being able to use particular data that is objective and reliable, we can use that data to say, look, this indicates this, so why don't we tweak what we're doing a little bit and strive for this level of excellence instead. Collecting good data and doing it the right way definitely helps to improve the understanding from both the observer and the teacher. Another important thing is comprehensive view. Collecting relevant data and resources provides a comprehensive view of the teaching and learning environment. This data can be used to assess student engagement, instructional strategies, classroom management techniques, and assessment practices. A comprehensive view means holistic. You can look at everything. And it also helps to ensure that the observation process is focused and meaningful. In other words, comprehensive view is the full picture. By collecting objective and reliable data, it gives us a bigger picture of everything that is happening and helps us to direct what should be happening or how things can change so that we can get better at what we're doing. And then finally, it helps us with informed decision making. By collecting relevant data and resources, definitely can be used to help us make better decisions. Data doesn't lie. It is what it is. You're able to look at data if you're collecting the correct data, and you can make better decisions based on the results. And the larger the data set, the better the decision making process should be. When you're doing like formal observations, for example, wait until you gather data on all of the teachers, if you're doing a full school observation process, and then you can come up with professional development courses or workshops, seminars, etc., based off of the data that you collect from all of them. Now, you can also do it with just specific departments. So if you have a science department, for example, where you identify through the data collected that they need help with resource allocation. They're doing the best they possibly can with what they have, but it's obvious through your classroom observations that they don't have the tools that they need. So you'll want to go ahead and make those changes if possible. Again, gathering the right data will help you to make better decisions. What are some examples of some data, though? Where can we get it from? That's a good question. Thank you for asking. Obviously, one of them is student work samples. Student work samples, what is that? Well, it can either be in-class work, it can be homework, it could be projects that they do, anything. Anything that students are doing is a work sample. So don't neglect that during your classroom observations, you're also collecting student work samples. Another thing that you can look at are lesson plans. A lot of places don't require per lesson plans, but at least you have the weekly lesson plans, or you should, and so make sure that you're evaluating them on a weekly basis or at least monthly. Take the time out that is necessary to look at the lesson plans. Something else that you could gather is student feedback. There are different opinions about gathering student feedback. One of the things that some places avoid doing is gathering feedback about teachers. I don't disagree necessarily with students giving their opinions about teachers. It's just that a lot of times younger people let their personalities interfere with the educational process or their learning process. Be very careful about the types of questions that you're asking students about teachers themselves. One thing that you can do is gather feedback about how they are learning. So, do you have the proper resources? Does the book align with what the teacher is teaching you? And it doesn't always, but if they say no, you can then look at that and see why. Perhaps the teacher is doing better than what is in the book. One of the things that I always tell teachers is that we don't teach the book, we teach the students. So maybe we don't need to teach certain things out of a book, but as long as the students are still getting the concepts that are in that particular part of a book, then that's all we really need to do. So be careful about the type of student feedback that you ask for. You can do it anonymously if you want to, so that they feel freer about giving you their opinions. But again, be careful about the kinds of questions that you're asking students. Try to focus on positive outcomes. You want their opinion, you want the truth, but what are you asking them? Okay, that's all I'm saying. Try to make it so that they are more focused on the learning process, not personality between them and a teacher. And then also we have instructional materials. With the instructional materials, are they using the books or they using some types of websites? How are they learning? What kind of content are they using to learn from? So gather that sort of stuff. Know what they're being taught so that you can help to formulate a plan for how to get better. And then the assessments, both formative, how are they being asked formative questions in the classroom? Do they have any quizzes? Do they have any projects? For the summative assessments, you should already know and you should already be gathering that data. That should be part of your process anyways, but that's the cumulative part of it. But what about all the other assessments? So make sure you're gathering data on whether or not quizzes are actually even being given in the class, if you don't know already. How often are quizzes being given? What kinds of questions are being asked? Are they asking all multiple choice questions all the time, which personally I don't feel are good enough to check understanding from students? That sort of thing. Look at the types of assessments that teachers are giving and how often they're performing each kind of assessment. And gather that data so that you can make better informed decisions. So let's conclude this module. Remember that in this module, we talked about establishing clear observation goals and criteria. Focused observations help ensure that the observation process is purposeful and meaningful, which is exactly what we need to have. Otherwise, why are we doing them, right? Second, we talked about fostering collaboration in planning the actual observations. Remember that collaboration allows administrators and teachers to work together to develop observation criteria. You can come up with your evaluation or your observation rubric yourself, but make sure you get feedback and buy-in from the teachers and set mutual goals. And also we talked about conducting effective pre-observation conferences. Remember that our pre-observation conferences provide an opportunity for the observer and the teacher to establish clear expectations for the observation process itself. Again, getting their buy-in. And then finally, we talked about collecting relevant data and resources so that we can hopefully make better decisions. Take a moment to reflect on the lessons of this module before you go on to the quiz. If you're taking this as a certificate course, there's a quiz that follows this. Just follow the link in the description and it'll take you to the course. If you haven't signed up for it, it'll ask you to sign up for it. But if you're taking this course, you would have done that before Module 1. But if you're just watching the video to enjoy it and to learn something new, then, all the power to you. The certificate course is not a requirement, obviously. This is on YouTube. So go ahead and reflect for a moment. Think about how you can use what you have learned in this module to be the best possible version of yourself in this aspect anyways. Coming up next is Module 3. In Module 3, we will talk about identifying techniques for conducting unobtrusive classroom observations. We will also discuss effective note-taking and documentation strategies. And we will explore methods for balancing feedback and observation time. And we will learn some strategies for managing unexpected situations. Because, they do happen. And they are unexpected. Again, if you're taking the course, go ahead and take the quiz. It's only 10 questions, 10 multiple choice questions. And I think it's pretty easy. You should do quite well. And get credit for taking this module and earning your certificate. Okay? See you in the next module. Thank you.